All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to come online here. If you'd like, I'd love if you share where you're dialing in from. It's always fun to see where people are coming from. There's a chat there in your right nav. You want to say hello from where you are. Nice. Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Boston, St. Louis. Hello from New York. South Bend, Central Mass. Awesome. We know it's the week before a lot of holidays, so we really appreciate you being here on the final stretch. London, Vermont. Let's go. All right, we have a lot of content to cover today, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. Quick reminder, there's a Q&A also in your right nav there. If you do have questions, please pop them into the Q&A. If we don't have time to get to them, we'll reach out separately, but we do intend to hopefully get to some of them. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome, customers, prospects, partners, from wherever you're joining us to our discussion and demonstration on how to turn workplace data into ROI with Skedda. I'm Jenny Mobius, SVP here at Skedda and the host of the Heroes of Modern Work podcast. I've been a software executive for over 20 years now and very, very lucky to join companies that help organizations tackle complex challenges like turning data into the stories that prove ROI. I'm joined today by our wonderful manager of customer onboarding, Patrick Cassidy, who has been crushing it at Skedda now for 5 years, quite the veteran. Hi, Patrick.
Hey folks, pleasure to be with you today.
Awesome. All right. So if you joined our Era of the FM Analyst webinar a few weeks ago, you learned how workplace data is a strategic lever for facilities teams. Facilities management is evolving beyond reactive maintenance, as I'm sure you all know, into a proactive discipline defined by data, good storytelling, and workplace strategy. Today, we'll demonstrate how to turn that strategy into action. I'll frame up a few business problems and the ROI opportunity, and then Patrick will show you exactly how those insights come to life inside of Skedda. Okay, let's dive in. Some of you have seen this. It's very common. The challenge we hear constantly is that facilities leaders have way too much data. From utilization data to occupancy data to surveys and feedback. You're under pressure to make space decisions with all the data, but you don't know exactly where to start all the time. So Patrick, love it if you could kick us off with the lay of the land. What's a good place to start, and what's a good easy win?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jenny. Hey folks, and I just wanted to say as I move through this, I see some existing customers in the chat, which is great. Also some newbies. Any questions you have, please feel free to fire them over. Also, if anything's unclear, you can reach out to us afterwards as well. I want to briefly just give you an overview of Skedda, the booking system itself, and where you'll find the kind of insights you're going to want to use. This is a typical sort of view of a venue. There will be a map or potentially multiple maps with different types of resources on here that you can move through. When a user wants to book, it's very straightforward. They can just click on any resource. You can set it to be booked for the full day for a desk, very common, and then they can just complete the booking. Or for meeting rooms, you can have it more granular. That's the booking side. That's what people will do. What you'll be more interested in on the back end will be the actual insights themselves. So when you go into your insights page, you'll see that you will have a breakdown of all the bookings that have occurred over a period of time. And in here, you can change the date range. So you can go for a week, you can go for a month range, and this will obviously change the data. In addition to this, you can filter what you're looking at. I'll speak a little bit about how you can create these filters later, but you'll get a snapshot here of your bookings. So if initially you're in any way hesitant or curious about, okay, how can I actually pull data? You can see it's done for you actually. And then with a little bit of tweaking, you can get very granular information from all of this. So this is how it generally looks, just at like a glance. And there's a couple of pillars that this is built upon. It could be that you just want everybody to book wherever they want. However, you may have specific team areas. You may have specific resources like dual monitors or standing desks, and only certain teams have access to those. And you will control those in your rules either one of two ways. It can be a binary rule. So it can be yes or no. Can I book there or not? For the marketing desks here, you can see for all of the marketing desks, you can only book this if you have a marketing tag. And that's the same for all of the teams. Only IT for IT, only finance for finance, and so on. So that's a yes or no. Or you may have a situation where you want teams to be able to book anywhere, but you'd like them to sit in their areas. And if something hits 100%, someone really should be able to book elsewhere. In that case, you wouldn't use this black and white condition. You'll use a booking window, which you can think of as a priority rule. And essentially what you're saying is nobody can book further than 30 days in any area. And then essentially in any other area. So if you're not IT, you can book in IT within 2 days. So those are the kind of the pillars of rules that you can create, all of which will funnel and lead to here, which is the overall data. So that's at a glance how you'll see your utilization. And I'm going to hand it back to Jenny, and then we can start kicking off some actual real world examples.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay. So I'd like to shift a bit now to finding the important ROI in the data. How to use the data to reduce costs, optimize operations, and improve experience, which are our 3 pillars of ROI here. When we talk about ROI, it's rarely one metric. It's the patterns. Underutilized zones, peak congestion, days where half the buildings sit empty, and yet for some reason HVAC and cleaning services remain the same. Those insights are hard to uncover without help. So here's a quick example of how to frame this up. You'll see the problem here: HVAC system and cleaning are scheduled for unoccupied and underutilized space. And the booking data reveals that you have 6% utilization on the 3rd floor and 0 bookings on Monday and Friday. So a hypothetical solution to save costs on building energy and cleaning is by scheduling BMS and janitorial teams based on utilization trends. It reminds me actually of a really great story that Larry Charlip, he's the director of real estate and occupancy planning at Roku, shared during our last webinar. His beloved Citi Field, he's a huge Mets fan, shout out to Larry, they collect data from ticket scans. And if fewer seats are scanned the very day of the game in a certain section, they know they need fewer cleaners in that section, and they can be deployed elsewhere or not deployed at all. So we ask the question all the time, why can't we do this in the office? And honestly, we can. So Patrick, can you walk us through how Skedda highlights those under and overutilization patterns?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we've looked a little bit just at this general mass of information. This is everything, all the bookings that have occurred. 2 more quick granular things to introduce you to understand what I'm going to pull here filter-wise. But you have a users list, and in your users list, you can attach certain tags to these users. So if you're in the finance team, you would receive the finance tag, the IT team, the IT tag, and so on. And then separately in your spaces, you'll see that a space can be attached to a specific space tag. So you can put spaces into predefined allotments, which you can then use to pull data on. Your users can also use these filters when they're looking to make a booking. If they want to quickly just see, only show me meeting rooms, it will only display those. So it's useful for both an end user and also you when you're pulling data. But when we're looking specifically in here at the insights, if I'm looking at next week, for example, I can filter, and rather than look at all the spaces, I will just look at, for example, the sales desks. And I will see that we can see a very clear division between the sales team and the overall percentages we were seeing. They clearly have team days on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and people are coming in every day on those days. However, on Monday and Friday, we can see that they're not getting that much attendance. And if we pair this by not looking at sales now, but by looking at the IT team, for example, we can see that on a Monday, they also aren't getting a huge amount of attendance. So if we look at the map as a whole, we can see that the sales team have 18 desks and that the IT team also have 14 desks here. So rather than have both rooms occupied on a Monday, you could separate this out and just put them in one room and then knock off the HVAC or the air conditioning in there on that day. And also tell the cleaners that they don't need to go into that room on that specific day. It would be simple to do this. Over time, when you look at that data, you would just go into your conditions and create a rule. So we're not going to allow people to go into the sales room on a Monday, and instead they have to go in and book in the IT room instead. So that's one way that you could prevent the use of a space where you're not getting a lot of traction on that day, and reallocate where those spaces should go. So that's one particular way you could do it. And then secondly, with the cleaner, you could pull a report and you could send this to your cleaning team, or you could give them access to Skedda. Now you can hide the visibility that they have. So I'm pulling up the view that a cleaner would have, and you can see here it's limited visibility. They can't actually see the names of any of the users or anything like this. And they could go into the list view and they could filter just for the meeting rooms. And then on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis, they could see actually the spaces that need to be used, and only clean those. Similarly, you could pull a report at the end of the month and use this against, the cleaning invoice you got, what rooms or what was cleaned on that particular day. So that's one way that you could reduce the costs that way. And then these spaces that you're going to see and this data, this can be very finalized. What I mean is when you look back on this, you can use two things to determine whether people were actually in the office and used the space. One is check-in. So check-in is when someone has made a booking and then on the day they would receive a Teams notification or an email, and then they could check into the booking. If they don't check in, you can just log it on the system, or you can remove the booking, which would mean that your data would be very clean. You're only going to see bookings that actually took place. And there's also a fail-safe to see if people actually turned up on the day. So you can go into your list view and you can go to the activity feed and you can see whether users have been in or not. And when something is canceled because somebody didn't check in, that will appear. And one final kind of fail-safe on this is we have something called occupancy tracking. You would put your Wi-Fi in here. When users come into the office, if they connect to Skedda in any way on their phone or through Teams, it will then show that they've been seen on site. And there's multiple ways that this can be shown. You can see someone used the mobile app. This was automatically seen. You can see it's the same user because this was for a desk booking, and then this was for a much shorter meeting room later on. And then here's the other ways: email, mobile app, and again, auto. They were using their phone. Skedda caught a hold of it because of the occupancy tracking, and then they were seen. So all of that will help you to then determine, whether people are actually in the office, meaning you can make a decision like closing off a room, and then you don't need to turn on the HVAC that day or have the cleaners. Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Jenny.
That was perfect. Thanks, Patrick. All right. So another example of how to find ROI using Skedda data is here. So the problem could be not enough research computers or not enough any resource that you use a lot, very expensive investment with little support from finance. And the data says in the past quarter, research computers saw 98% utilization Monday through Friday. The solution: high utilization rate for research computers could justify investing in more, leading to improved productivity. So this really reminds me of one of our favorite customers, the Woolcock Institute. They're a leading scientific research and clinical organization. They did just that. So Woolcock tracks bookings for shared research computers, which revealed sustained high utilization rates. These reports gave them the hard data they needed to advocate for further investment and build the business case to fund 2 additional computers. Patrick, if a facilities manager needs to justify a large expense, but all they had were anecdotes and no hard data to back it up, what data could they pull from Skedda? And can you show us exactly where that lives?
Yep. This is a really good example. This is something we see all the time, either with team areas or as you're pointing to specific resources. So in this case, if we look here, there are dots on certain desks for things like dual monitors, and certain teams have more demand for these than others. So we can see that in the finance team, there are 6 of these dual monitors. In the IT team, there are 2. And anecdotally, you're hearing from the IT team, oh, there's never enough of these monitors. We want to be able to use these more. But you only had the budget for 8. So they're split where they're split currently. You could go into the insights and having created a filter for this, you could look at the use of the dual monitors overall. So first we'll just look at the utilization of the dual monitors, and you might scratch your head and go, well, like it's only 50% usage here. I don't know why the IT team thinks that they can't use them. But if we pull out specifically on those areas, we can see that the IT team is indeed using, on their team days, they're using 100% of them. So on the days that they really need to use them, they can't get access to anymore. And if I look at the finance team, I can see that on those specific days, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, there's still plenty of space there that can be, or 2 of those could probably be pulled over to the IT team. And then you can make an informed decision on where you go from here. Do you simply take 1 or 2 of these and add them into the IT team area? Or do you perhaps change your rules and allow like cross-pollination or collaboration between the 2 areas and allow both of those teams access to those specific desks, but not to other ones in those particular areas, all of which can granularly be controlled under conditions. So in here, you could say for those specific desks, whether you're in the IT team or the finance team, you can book any of those 8 spaces. But the data essentially here and how granular you want to make your filters is what's going to drive that decision. Okay, I'll pass it back to you, Jenny.
Love that. I love those 2 examples. All right, so thanks again, Patrick. So I'd like to cover one more really important ROI story. In prior webinars, we've spoken at length about this, about the evolution of the facilities management role, now including the employee experience, which does have its own ROI attached. Here's a great hypothetical again. A team has a difficult time finding available spaces that meet their needs, discouraging them from coming back to the office. Traditional meeting rooms are stagnant at 17% utilization. However, collaboration spaces and hot desks are rising to 80% utilization. So, possible solution is to repurpose those underutilized spaces according to the usage patterns, which will improve attendance and employee satisfaction. Also reminds me of another great customer of ours, Lighthouse Credit Union, because they also did just this. When they decided to consolidate 3 aging and overcrowded offices into 1 modern headquarters, the move wasn't just about space, it was about their culture. In the old office, despite many employees working hybrid schedules, everyone still had permanently assigned desks, which didn't make sense anymore. This led to underused spaces, unnecessary equipment spend, which is another ROI moment, and inefficient resource planning. Desks sat idle, and while teams struggled to find resources that suited their needs, it negatively impacted their employee experience. Now, with the right data, Lighthouse knew they needed a flexible desk hoteling system, allowing hybrid employees to reserve desks only on the days that they worked on site. This shift enabled efficient desk sharing throughout the week and significantly reduced the amount of office equipment they needed to purchase. They saved thousands of dollars, and you could read it in our case study on the site. As for employees who regularly work in office 5 days a week, they did receive assigned desks that never needed to be booked. So all in all, designing spaces that better fit the employee's needs would increase workplace satisfaction scores, improve productivity, and get a better value as well out of the rent per square foot. Patrick, if a facilities manager needs to justify a space decision, what data could they pull from Skedda?
Yep, really good question, and it's something we see all the time. We've seen with some of the examples already with areas, team areas, or resources that you can see something's at 100% and then make a decision to shift it. In terms of maybe changing an entire area from being one type of bookable space to another to improve employee satisfaction for adding more spaces or a different type of collaboration space, rather than this just be a meeting room of some sort. This could be changed. Different type of furniture could be brought in. We see this with offices or companies that have built a new space, and they're maybe changing from having assigned spaces to a more hybrid model, and they're not entirely sure whether or not they should use the space for that. So after a couple of weeks or months of actually looking at data, they can make a decision on that. So I'll give an example of a meeting room that is quite large. They've decided to use it as a meeting room, and they're going to see how it gets on. So there's 5 meeting rooms here. 4 of them are standard size of 4 to 8 people can fit in, but then they've one rather large one of 16 people. So in the insights, again, if I go in and I look at the filter here, and I look at the meeting rooms generally, just to see what kind of usage is going on, I can see that, yeah, it's kind of the key days that people are in, they're getting general utilization. But then for one specific room, which has been filtered as the large meeting room, how much use is that getting? And it's not getting a lot. There's only 2 days a week it's being used, and there's only 6 bookings across one particular room. Now, this is the only room that it can accommodate 16 people. So perhaps it needs to be retained for that reason. So another place that you can go to double check this is you could dig in a little deeper and you could look at that particular large room. So you can either just search for the name of it or filter for the large room. And within the booking itself, when people go to book this, we can ask that they say how many people are going to attend. And we can see that they're never getting attendance of more than 3 to 5 people, which all of the other meeting rooms can accommodate. And where that is, just so I can quickly show people, in their custom field, you can create a custom field asking people how many people are in here. So when someone actually goes to make a booking, they have to answer it. So with the data here, the actual percentage in combination with the understanding of how many people are actually turning up, you could make a decision then that the other meeting rooms can accommodate this, because if we look at the other meeting rooms, they're nowhere near 100% utilization either. So they can absorb those 6 other bookings a week, and then that space could be reaccommodated. And we saw earlier that the sales team is at 100% on some days. Perhaps some desks can be put in there for them, or it's a totally different type of breakout room or some other sort of resource that people can use. So that's a good example of how a space can be justified using the data, Jenny.
Definitely. I mean, collaboration areas are on the rise, certainly with remote work and hybrid work. So that's a great example, Patrick. Okay. So to wrap this up, I wanted to share one last key to getting this right that I think is actually very critical. It's to know your audience. Different data sets and ROI stories will appeal to different stakeholders depending on what you're trying to get buy-in for. For instance, you'll prove operational efficiency to your COO, cost savings to your CFO, employee experience to your CHRO, and so forth. The data isn't just about dashboards, although as you just saw, they're very important. It's about taking the data and telling the ROI story with clarity, with confidence, and influence. So last but not least, we've created a toolkit to help you do just that. The FM Analyst Guide will help you upskill by turning 6 essential data sources into clear insights to strengthen your space strategy. The data inventory spreadsheet groups over 50 data sources to help you identify, evaluate, and prioritize your data. And the presentation template helps you turn your data into the clear, compelling ROI stories we've told today. Also, as a kind of bonus there's an ROI cheat sheet that really provides a quick way to see it all in one place. As a side note, we'll also be sending you this recording along with the slides. You can bring all of this back to your team. I'm going to go ahead and pop into the Q&A because we do have a few minutes. Patrick, this is from, okay, let's see. Whenever I pull data reports, I'm only able to pull for 6 months. Is there a workaround for that, or is it a hard and fast rule?
Currently, it's a hard and fast rule, yeah. So it used to be 3 months. We extended it to 6. And I'm sure if we get more people like yourself asking for larger periods, we'll definitely pass this on to our product and engineering team. They're watching. And we'll extend it. But for now, no, it's 6 months. So if you wanted to get 2025, for example, you'd pull 1st of January to end of June, and then July to the end of December.
And again, please keep sending us your product feedback, because when we hear these things over and over again, we do change and evolve with your needs. So thank you for that question. Patrick, for a team just getting started with workplace data, and we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but what's another insight you recommend looking at first in Skedda?
Yes, so I'll share my screen again, because I always think it's helpful for a visual aid. Yeah, so I think the filters here, really the great thing about this is you can put as many as you want. You can be as specific about these as you want. These are sort of your key pillar that you're going to build upon. So utilize this as much as possible. You'll see that I have in here dual monitors, then I have dual monitors finance, IT, and you can granularly dig down into specific areas. So this is the first area I would think about, and that from that you can build your rules. You can think about how you want people to be logged as attending or not. So essentially, how you think about your filters, the way you want people to be able to interact and book specific spaces is the first place to start, I would say.
Awesome. I see a new question here. Since COVID-19 came, people started to work more from home. How can Skedda be used or be useful looking at that aspect?
There's a couple of ways. I mean, first and foremost, you're going to get a very clear understanding straight away if and when people are in the office and what areas they're moving towards. So you might find if you create certain resources like dual monitors that they mightn't have at home, or other tech that they can only really get access to in the office, and they're 100% getting booked, you can quickly see that's a great reason for people to come into the office. That's something they're coming in for. And that would justify potentially buying more of those, offering those to your staff so that they can come into the office more often as well.
Awesome. So just a reminder to you all, if you are interested in that toolkit I just talked about, head on over to your right nav and click on the resources, and you'll get a nice link to it there. Also want to remind you, we actually have a new and improved trial for those of you that are brand new to us. So please go check out the trial. You can get to it right on the homepage of your website. Just want to give a huge shout out again to Patrick Cassidy. Thank you again for joining me on these, Patrick. You really are the best expert here on our Skedda product. And thank you all for joining us. Can't believe we kept this to 30 minutes. Pretty proud of us, Patrick.
Yes, good job. Christmas miracle.
Yeah, really crisp. So we will see you at the next session. I think we actually got to all the questions, but of course, Patrick and I are always available to you through LinkedIn or email. So please reach out if you think of anything else. But thank you all.
Thanks so much, folks.